I'm Joshua Hayward, and thanks for joining me for life readings this week in the stars and cards. And let me extend an invitation to you to join me each week as I explore all the possibilities and the challenges and the opportunities for inward growth and outward effectiveness. And this is brought to you by Breath of Life School in Yellow Springs, Ohio, and many blessings. Enjoy. Ascension, Rapture, Divergence. Have you heard these words? It might just be time to familiarize yourself with these words. They're very powerfully descriptive of the times that we have entered. I'll kind of just let you look those things up if you're not really that familiar, but just to mention briefly, they're really describing a transcendent time in the history of humanity where we're beginning to relate to ourselves and to each other, to the world, in a different way. And the time of the patriarchy is passing. A lot of the darkness that we're experiencing right now is the patriarchy seeking to not dissolve, to hold on to itself, to hold on to a way of life that certainly has not worked for a really, really long time. All right, saying it again. Ascension, Rapture, Divergence. Okay, now we can think of these energies in society, as a whole, humanity. But I want you to think of it and keep in mind the big picture. Last week we were talking about big picture, little picture. This week we'll continue with that a little bit, but with you in your individual picture, you're moving into a time along with everyone else where life has become so challenging that you cannot hold on to the concepts of who you are, who you were, the way you live your life. If you're trying to hold on to that particular way, if you're trying to go back to something that you think is normal, there's just going to be more and more conflict, I would think. So we're looking toward the new times, not trying to move back and paddle back upstream. We want to go downstream to our truth. And the truth is that we're flowing into these new times. And to kind of describe that, new times, we picture yourself in a world where you don't have just one skill and do one thing. Maybe that's your primary thing. But maybe there's a whole bunch of different skills that come together. And what if each individual, including you, was more diverse? And what if part of that diversity was being able to look inside to Christ consciousness, looking inside to spirit, to balance your path outwardly? What if learning how to listen to guidance in a much more refined way? was part of those skills. Anyway, this is a setting up. I don't know if I mentioned it or not. I think maybe I did. It's the week beginning October 24th, 2021. And I just wanted to talk about Saturn and Jupiter really quick. Saturn went retrograde last spring, and of course within the last couple of weeks just turned direct. And Jupiter also was going retrograde, and it turned direct too just last week. So looking at your life and looking at the lives of other people around you, you probably noticed that when Saturn did go retrograde, a lot of things that you were doing, it just sort of changed. And maybe you saw who you really were and decided to just jump into whatever. Or maybe you were like, oh, okay, I've been doing this, but this is not working, and I'm going to shift into this. Those kind of things. You're being forced, we're all being forced to expand ourselves and to become more diverse and to develop new skill sets. And that's kind of the theme here, is different skills, okay, for Ascension, Rapture, Divergence, for this new path. And now, with Saturn going back direct, understand that we've all got permission, you have permission to take what you've learned and begin to apply it. And so there's a turning of the tides now in a kind of a cool way where you can begin to incorporate the things you've been learning. Maybe you were unclear about that, and that's one reason I wanted to talk about that this week. With Jupiter going back direct, too, with it in retrograde motion and now turning back direct, that was a lot of inspiration there, not just the Saturnian, that sort of that dour, this is really, wow, kind of, hard work. But Jupiter was trying to inspire us and say, well, here's some help with that. And you have to admit, there's been, times have been tough, but there's been some help, new ideas, new people, new inspiration. So as this week develops and the subsequent weeks moving into the holidays, and finally into January, where where the retrograde of Aquarius turns back around direct, and this whole wave of planetary shifting ends, and we move into another whole frequency in the coming year. Wow, until then, we get to move forward and to see our lives in a new way. And we get businesses and relationships and things like that can kind of come back. Maybe they've changed, but some of them may be able to come back together. But it's a way. It's a time for looking at what really feels right, and the skills that are really going to move you forward, to really appreciate and have gratitude for what you've learned, even though it's been difficult. Okay, so as we move forward here, another thing I wanted to mention is that Saturn in Aquarius, now as it goes direct, between now and in January, it's moving right into the Christmas time, and there it's moving back into an exact square to Uranus. And I talked about that for so long, for like months. I was talking about that, and it pulled apart, it's moving back together. That square is so important. It's really more about the same thing. It's about establishing new structures that can really hold the integrity of our soul work as we move forward, as we ascend into that light, as we find the rapture of spiritual reality in our lives, as we diverge into the unknown, moving away from the things that no longer serve, diverging away and into our truth. Okay, these are the things that I'm talking about. All right, so here's the cards. In the first card, all right, probably about 6 cards the way I've been going, is conflict or striving, the 5 of Wands. So looking and trying to, that conflict has been the trigger for learning and different and more diverse skill sets. Okay, the skill sets are really helping with this. So let's just look at this card not as a bad thing, but as something that we're going to see how the energy's kind of all caught up here. And it's just a really good sign that we can look to and say, wow, I want to live a life that, well, we can't avoid conflict, but I want to live a life where if conflict is present, we have the skills to be able to move through it, and we can grow, and we can be dynamic and really move into greater success. Whereas it looks like failure in the patriarchy. Okay? So letting go of that concept and moving into the second card is the Princess of Swords. She's the manifester of ideas and what she wants to create. Listening to source energy, moving into the heart is a really good place. Listening to what Spirit has to say and then bringing it in. Maybe with that conflict, maybe she's trying a little bit too hard. You have to see where you're at with this card. Trying too hard, or maybe really being more deliberate with that approach. But manifesting, bringing it in. The third card, negotiations, associations, agreements, the 4 of Swords. This is when maybe you've been diverging into some part of your skill sets is working with people. Aquarius has to do with, like people. And working together. That's the idea of Aquarius, and it's cooperation. Okay, so this is that harmonizing kind of card that you want, where you can actually make the diversity into agreements, working with it like that. And that opens up Ace of Discs, the new path. Oh, the word I was looking for, I'm sorry, was competition. Cooperation, competition. Boop. Okay. And so, transforming the competitive stuff into more harmonized. That's divergent skills. Okay, opens up the Ace of Earth, the Ace of Discs. The very new way of being. Okay? Beautiful card. And that's accompanied by the Priestess. And she is Spirit. Okay, this is that Holy Spirit or that Christ consciousness that wants to, that you can be guided by, that comes through the heart and energizes and opens up opportunities and blesses everything. So here we are, the blessings of the new path, being open to this. And one more card at least. Let's see. Oh, all right. Well, yeah, the Ace of Swords. So you've got to not, the new way of being is also a new way of thinking. The Ace of Swords happen to be, like with the 4 of Swords here, the Princess of Swords happen to be the mind and ways of thinking and communicating and ideas in that form. So we're really left with the Ace of Discs, the Priestess, the spiritual card, and the Ace of Swords, which is the energy of new thinking. So, wow, what a week. Many blessings to you in opening up these energies of different skill sets. Blessings of divergence, the blessings of ascension, the blessings of rapture be with you as you seek the divine in all things.